Ah, welcome back to my channel. It's gonna be a rough day. Sorry, what has been a rough day. Not an impossibly rough day, but a rough day. Sorry, I've been doing things and was up earlier, did things earlier. Just worn out, and it's barely 7 o'clock in the morning. So I'm gonna get up, wake up, go over to my dad's room, get him up for his medication, drain his bag, urine bag in the leg. Again, I did it earlier back at 4 in the morning, and start processing the day. He's on antibiotics right now because when they came to change the catheter bag, or not the catheter bag, when they came to replace the catheter tube, they thought they saw some stuff in his urine, so they took a sample, and they tested that sample, and it came back with, reported back a urinary tract infection. Now that's very common with these older people. With no symptoms at all, they could still report a urinary tract infection, which could be catheter-related urinary tract infection. And those don't need to be treated with antibiotics every time. I mean, just because you have a report or test positive for a UTI doesn't mean you got a full-blown UTI. That's a layman's way to say that, but there are no other symptoms, so asymptomatic. But it could be something else, but it's reported back as a UTI, so the doctor prescribed antibiotics, which you never want to overuse antibiotics. Otherwise, they'd be on them every day the rest of their lives. The way these UTIs get reported. And so he's on UTI, he's on antibiotics. Now, the round of antibiotics. And this time, the first thing it did was give him hot, smelly diarrhea. And of course, this urine bag, collection bag, fills up with nasty-looking, dark urine, because antibiotics attack both the good and the bad stuff down there, and it flushes it all out. With the diarrhea, that's just the first one that's come from antibiotics, and so I gotta go deal with that. So let me get myself put together to make some more coffee, and we'll talk about it. Hello and welcome back to my channel. I got cleaned up a little bit. Just a little bit. It's one of those days again where I got to deal with the unexpected, and it's just part of the game. Part of the life. And one of the things I always have to deal with when you're dealing with elderly people, and those with catheters, and those with who are wearing adult diapers, and I'm going to start saying that, adult diapers and not adult pants or whatever the heck it is. It's still in pants, a life in pants, unzipped, even though it didn't have a zipper. I wish it did, you could zip it up. But the UTIs, they come in and you battle those all the time. You battle those all the time. Hold on just a second. Yeah, I had to cough and get some coffee. We battle those UTIs all the time, and there's nothing. You try everything you can to prevent them. You clean them. You clean your loved one. You clean the urine bag or the collection bag. You clean the catheter. You change the diapers. You make sure to wipe. You use barrier cream to prevent infections and whatever else. But sometimes there's nothing you can do. They have to drink a lot of water, more than they're willing to drink, because they're just not thirsty. And that's something about the brain damage from Alzheimer's and dementia and some other conditions where they just won't be thirsty. And if they're not thirsty, they don't want to drink. If they're not hungry, then they don't want to eat, even if they're starving, even if they're dehydrated. And the more dehydrated they get, the less they want to drink water, because their mind's all gone. Now, with UTIs are very common for many different reasons, but for women, they're especially prevalent because their private areas, front and back, are too close together. They're very close together, so that leads for one to transfer to the other, and that can lead bacteria to go up into the urethra, the uterus, and all that other stuff. I'm not going to have a good day with words. And you put diapers on that adds more to it, because even though the diaper is absorbing all this stuff, bacteria, it can still pass from one side to the other, and you have to keep them especially clean. I'm not talking about just when they go to the toilets. You got to multiple times a day get down there and wipe them and make sure there's no leakage, and that's almost an impossibility. If they pass gas, a little bit of fecal matter comes out. You might not see it, but gas always has fecal matter. Farts always have fecal matter in it. And there's nothing you can do about that. With catheters, especially with long-time catheter users, when they're up their penis or up their vagina, or if there's a port that they put in on the side, it's just, I don't want to think about that, but that can cause a catheter-associated UTI, meaning there's going to be bacteria in there, and everyone has an E. coli in their system, and there's good E. coli, believe it or not, and bad E. coli. And so when you have a urine test, and you test positive for a UTI, you could, they're most likely to throw antibiotics at you. And when that happens, the antibiotics kill the good bacteria, the bad bacteria, and actually make it easier for it to catch another UTI. Not catch, but get it again. And it causes other issues. Only treat UTIs with symptoms with antibiotics. If they're asymptomatic, and there's this type, I'm going to look at it right now, but it's asymptomatic bacteriuria, and that's very common in elderly and catheter wounds, where you're always going to have what turns out to be in a test a UTI, and it might not be a UTI. It might be something else that is similar to a UTI, but doesn't need to be bombarded with chemicals and all that. And one of the things I do to try to prevent this, of course, you got to make them drink a lot of water, but I use Cranberry Extract, and I use D-Mannose, and every day I'm giving my dad that. But even with that, he still tests positive for UTIs without having any other symptoms. And if he doesn't have symptoms, I mean, burning on your urination, confusion and other issues, a lot of different, you got to look it up, but a lot of different things that go with the UTI. If they don't have those, they're not going to, it's probably not going to turn into sepsis. But it does need to be monitored. You can't really home treat this stuff. But once they do a urine test, they have to give you antibiotics. They don't do the urine test because there's no symptoms, and there's really no reason for them to be giving you a urine test. You go to the hospital and they immediately test your urine, and you've got a UTI, and they start bombarding it. Take it to the emergency room, they start throwing them at them. No one asked them to do a urine test, but they did it anyway. And that's one of the problems with the hospital system and the level of education, medical education, because not all UTIs are actually UTIs, and some are going to be there for the rest of their lives. So unless you've got blood in your urine, unless you've got symptoms, not you, but your loved one, you probably don't want to have your urine tested, because they'll immediately bombard you with antibiotics. And the more you take antibiotics, the more resistant you get to them. And I'm back. Cough, cough, cough. I'm tired of putting my coughs on camera. So the UTIs, you treat them, you try to do your preventative by giving them Cranberry Extract and D-Mannose, and make them drink a lot of water, and try to hydrate them with other things like fruit, watermelon and things like that have a lot of water content, so it boosts how much they have, and you have hydration enhancers that you add. It's a lot of work, and it's, trying to keep that going. But with the catheters, you have to replace the bag, the actual black bag. Whenever you change it, you're supposed to take it off, unhook it, put a new one on, take the old one, chuck it, or go and empty it, and then run water through it and vinegar and clean it out, let it dry, hang it up to let it dry. Then you could reuse that, and they're good for about a week before they start to smell the urine themselves, because the urine has saturated through the plastic or whatever the coating is, and they begin to smell on the outside. But you'd have to do that, and they have to clean the hose or the tube. You got to clean that all the way up, but you got to clean around their genitalia. If the penis has got the skin that comes down, even if it's circumcised, because they get older, everything starts to shrink. You got to push that back and make sure you're cleaning around the penis head and up on the part of the tube going in. But even when they're changing the catheters, they're pulling the old catheter out, which is in that brief moment, unless they've changed their gloves and got new gloves and got a fresh catheter out of the bag and take it out and put it in. But even when they're doing that, unless they've washed him down or washed the person down, clean them up and clean inside the penis, even when you're pushing the catheter in, it's going in and it's catching, there's up that whole system to the penis or the vagina. There's other bacteria that's attaching itself because it's pre-existing on the outside of the catheter tube, and that can lead to UTIs too. But the thing you want to watch out for is sepsis, and that's when UTI has gone untreated for so long. But to get up to that point, you need to have symptoms. And there are a lot of symptoms associated with UTIs. So, you hear a bunch of different conflicting advice and recommendations and directions from medical personnel. You're getting information from one, and then you get an information from a doctor that contradict each other. That happens more often than you can imagine. But once the doctor has a report in front of them, a urinalysis that says there's a UTI, they have to say, here, you need to take the antibiotics. You can refuse to, but then that goes on your chart, refused. And if that UTI progresses into something worse, that falls back on you because you refuse you refuse the antibiotics, and you're not doing your best interest for your loved one. You see, it's a no-win situation, so don't get your analysis done if you just suspect there's a UTI. And if you suspect there's a UTI, there's got to be other symptoms going on. So watch for that. Watch for the symptoms. If there's blood, I don't mean if there's dark urine, excuse me again. If there's dark urine in the morning, that's probably dehydration. Or parts of the dehydration. If they're not hydrated enough, the urine will start turning darker and it will smell. You want to keep an eye out the entire day. Is it always this way? Does it smell like this all the time? Every time that bag fills up, does it happen? Or if they've got diapers, if they go to the toilet by themselves, keep an eye on what's coming out, and if it's dark, it's got blood in it, you should be able to tell what the blood looks like. It's very noticeable. And the smell, but sometimes the smell can be, and the color can be attributed to supplements that you're giving them. And sometimes the D-Mannose and the Cranberry Extract are fighting off whatever's going on in there, bacteria, and pushing them out to the urinary tract. So, all I can recommend to you, because it's happened to me so many times, is don't take them to an ER for sure, because you're screwed. I'm going to use that word, you're screwed if they admit them, because once they admit them, or once you're in the emergency room, the first thing they do is do a UTI. I mean, a urinalysis. They test their urine. And they immediately want to stick a catheter in them before they've even finished the urinalysis. And then they put them up in a hospital room for a week, and by the time they get them back, they're completely destroyed physically and mentally, and everything you've got into place is gone. So I avoid, unless there's absolutely no reason, I avoid the emergency room. This is a bit long-winded, more long-winded than I wanted to say, but I'm just wanted to do. But it's been a rough day already, and that nasty diarrhea that came out of him because of the antibiotics just I don't want to get into it. But when they changed the catheter, they tested his urine because they saw something, a little bit in there. They thought a little bit of something floating in there, a little bit of might be solids. Weren't sure, but took it, tested it. Of course, they also changed the catheter. This is the first time it's happened. When they replaced the catheter, they took a urine sample, but later, that leg bag, filled up with blood. I mean, not filled up, but there was blood and urine, very dark, in at least almost about 3 cups worth by the time it was done, but that's petered out over time. That happens sometimes with the catheter, and it causes some abrasions and cuts in there. And then that leads to other issues later. So you have to be careful with UTIs, but you don't have to listen to the doctor on everything. I went to the, we went to the urologist because I was talking to his primary care doctor about the catheter in the penis hole. It was so much weight was coming on there, and he's had it for a while, that it ripped or expanded his pee hole. And when it would pull down to get to the bottom here, he would be in pain. And there would be a little bit of blood, too. So I wanted to find out, do we need to have this catheter anymore? And fortunately, they have to do that. He needs to do it. It's his bladder's kaput, basically. But I asked him, was there something we can do about this expanding pee hole issue? And they said, no, there's nothing in place for that. There's nothing in place for that. We don't have anything like that. You just have to be careful. But I came up with a solution for that. Do you know what I did? I went to the dollar store. I walked into the dollar store and bought a bunch of feminine hygiene pads. And I went up to the clerk and I asked the lady who was the clerk, are these any good? And she looked at me and I said, she goes, I don't know, I don't use them. And I said, oh, these aren't for me. And she was smiling. I said, they're for my dad. And she really had a good chuckle over that. So what I did was I took those pads, one pad, and every day, or every time we change his diapers, adult diapers, we wrap that around his penis. And so it will support the hose and stop the hose from dropping, from getting too heavy. If it gets too heavy or it's out of place and it pulls, it will not go all the way back to the very back of the penis head and cause pain and all this. And since I've been doing that, he hasn't had one day of pain. Now, I had figured this out before we went to the urologist, and we went into the urologist when I asked her, do you have anything for this, some official thing that would do this? And she said no. And then I told her my solution, and she said, oh, that's brilliant. It's a brilliant idea. And so the VA, who supplies most of our medical needs for my dad, or medical supplies, sent us boxes of female hygiene pads. So now I have boxes of that, and I have a really good stockpile from the Dollar Tree. So I got a lot of that. Now, while I was sitting there with the urologist, she out of the blue was looking at the record, it's my dad's record, medical record, and medicines, and she said, well, kind of a look on her face, a little scoffy look, and said, oh, the Cranberry Extract guy, the that could help, but the D-Mannose, I don't really think it would. And I got really interested, and I said, oh, well, I really want to hear about this. I don't want to give him anything I don't need to give him. Are there studies on this? Or have you heard anything bad about D-Mannose? And, what do you base that opinion on? And she goes, oh. Well, I just, no, I haven't read any studies. I haven't heard anything. I don't think. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm keeping it on his routine because, if I get a 0.5% or 1% chance that's going to help prevent a UTI, a real UTI, a full-blown UTI, one that's going to drive him off the deep end physically and mentally, I'm taking that chance. So that's what I did with that. Female hygiene products wrapped around my dad's penis. Yeah. I do that in the senior helpers that I have every day. Showers, every time we change his underwear. Diapers, we wrap a new one around that penis. And it works. It's been working. And if penis does bleed a little bit, it absorbs that. If there's anything leaking out of his penis around the catheter, it's going to be absorbed by that. That's a brilliant idea I came up with. I'm still laughing about what the Dollar Tree lady was saying, or thought about my little joke, but it was absolutely true. Anyway, so we got to be really careful about this kind of thing. UTIs are a minefield. You think you know what's going to happen in the process and all. You don't know. There could be those UTIs that have no symptoms, and so you won't be testing them. You won't be testing their urine, so you won't know that they've got the UTI. And some UTIs will go away on their own. Not all. If they've got symptoms, chances are you have to be very careful with that. If those symptoms don't alleviate over a specific amount of time, then you're going to have to treat it with something. But the asymptomatic ones could be a long-term one that's not going to go away. And every time they do a urinalysis, it's going to show as having a UTI. And it might not even be that. There are other things that could trigger that result that relate to the kidneys, could relate to old age and other things, or from the catheter. How do you figure this out when even the doctors can't figure this out? You just have to learn how your loved one is normally. Pay close attention and notice any little change. And don't jump up every time they get a little bit confused. Oh, it's a UTI. Oh, he got mad at me today. Oh, it's a UTI. That isn't a UTI. That's not. That's being old, human. And yeah, got dementia too. I get cranky too. And I don't have a UTI. At least I don't think so. And I don't have dementia. If I had dementia, I wouldn't be remembering all the stuff like cleaning up diarrhea. So, that's life. Be careful. There's no cure for a UTI, but you can manage them. But you have to pay close attention to your loved one. And try to avoid antibiotics, but don't avoid them if they need them. Because untreated UTI can damage the kidneys. It can cause long-term effects to their cerebral function and more. So keep a close eye. If they've got symptoms, treat those symptoms. And if they don't go away, then go in and have him tested or them tested for a UTI. Don't jump the gun on that. Don't overuse antibiotics because they'll become resistant to it. They'll have to find a different medication for people who are resistant to antibiotics, which could turn out to have worse side effects than the antibiotics. It's a no-win situation. But that's the life of the caregiver, dealing with this kind of thing. Anyway, I'm going to take a break with coffee and a fit of coughing and try to get my mind going again for the day. Thank you for staying with me through this long mess. Take care, and I'll see you again another time.